Welcome, everybody. This panel is on corporate support for a reliable regional transit system. My name is Jeff Campbell. I am the Community Development Director at the City of Hazel Park, Class 37, Leadership Detroit, best class ever. And I'd like to welcome our panelists, Zaineb Hussein, Executive Director, Wayne United, Deputy Director, External Affairs, Executive Office, Wayne County, is that correct? Class of 40.
Best class ever.
There it is. And then Trina Shanks, Professor, School of Social Work at the University of Michigan, the Class of 38, correct? Do we have your mic working? Is it on? Oh, it doesn't appear to be. Well, we'll figure it out. So as we start and talk about the corporate role in regional transit, I kind of wanted to get a question for Zaineb. As a stakeholder in the regional transit effort this time around for 2020, where does the process currently stand, and what is being done differently this time around? And is there a greater focus for grassroots groups and millennials as we do this for the third time in a row, basically?
Thanks, Jeff. I see some LD grads from 40, all right? So I think that before you know where you're going, you need to know where you were. So I think it's important to revisit the 2018 transit plan and why we were not able to move forward with that. And I think that a lot of it had to do with politics. We couldn't get past our politics that year, and this year we're trying to get past that. We're trying to create a coalition of the willing, right? The coalition of the willing. What does that mean? Partners who understand the value of regional transit and what that means to the region as a whole. If anybody heard Dave Coulter's speech, County Executive Coulter's speech in the morning, one thing that he talked about, which was so important, was regional partnership. It is not about me, it is about we, together. And I think that's what's different this time around. And how we're going to do that, just to kind of give you an idea of what steps we're moving towards in order to get that done. So So the communities that do want regional transit are Washington County, Oakland County, and Wayne County. And what we've done is we've actually gone to the legislator. And there is an act called the Municipal Partnership Act, which gives communities an opportunity to come together and fund issues that are regional priorities. And one of the priorities that we understand is extremely important for the region is regional transit. So it is actually now just passed committee, and we're hoping it goes to the floor for a vote fairly soon. And this basically gives our partners, our coalition of the willing, an opportunity to take the vote to the people. Now, if we truly believe that democracy is the best form of government, we need to ensure that prevails. And how do we do that? We allow our residents to use their voice and allow our residents to cast their vote, which is their voice, and tell us what they believe to be true. And we truly understand the importance of that. The county executive, Warren C. Evans, has been kind of beating this drum the past 2 years. And we believe that this year is the year that we can come together as a regional partners, come together to make this happen. Young millennials, as you mentioned, young millennials and grassroots. So when we talk about grassroots organizations, right, those are the organizations that do the work directly with the individuals that are affected by, the lack of regional transit. So they know best of, one, the importance of it. Two, they also can educate their base, getting that momentum moving, understanding the importance of transit, but also making sure others understand it as well. And then for millennials, the reality is, and one thing that we have to understand is millennials are leaving, right? We are losing population in the state of Michigan. Our millennials come, they go to school, we have amazing universities, University of Michigan, go blue, Michigan State, Wayne State University, right? Amazing universities, colleges, Henry Ford College, but the reality is as soon as they're done, they're leaving us. We need to stop. We need to make sure that we are actually a place, a destination that allows people to come, want to work, live, play here in Michigan. And the way we do that is through regional transit. One thing that I also want to mention is the importance of getting young millennials on board. the last regional transit push, we had the partners there, but it was because of politics that we couldn't really engage and mobilize them. Once this Municipal Partnership Act is passed and we do get the support, we are going to hit the ground running. We're going to get those young millennials. We're going to get the nonprofit organizations, and we're going to get the business community involved, because this is important for all of us, not just one.
Thank you, Zaineb. Trina, as a professor of social work at the University of Michigan, as much as young people do care about anything, does mass transit matter to them?
Well, mass transit matters for all of us, because as someone who lives in Detroit and makes the trek to Ann Arbor every week, it is so frustrating during peak traffic time when everyone's going into the city at the same time. You get stuck in traffic. Even when you have a parking pass, you're looking around for parking. So people are feeding the meters and paying parking tickets and getting frustrated. And it also means that young people who are in Dearborn Heights, in Southfield, in Detroit, in Sterling Heights, sometimes they feel they have to move to Ann Arbor because it's just so hard to get back and forth. So to save cost and to reduce frustration, and when we have major conferences coming in, we're paying so much money for limousine services to get back and forth from the airport. So there's just so much money and energy and frustration that goes because we don't have good regional transit.
And obviously, I assume the patient population of your young professionals could utilize this as well.
Absolutely. The hospital systems as well. As someone who's lived in Europe, who've lived in South America, who've lived in Washington, D.C., never needed a car, never need to think about it. When I come here, if you don't have your own personal vehicle, you can't get anywhere or do anything.
So as an employee of the University of Michigan, what do you think their role is as the anchor institution, really, in Washtenaw County?
Well, I don't speak for the University of Michigan
Clearly.
per se, and I'm not in the Department of Transportation, but we have created something called the Detroit Connector, which is a bus that goes from the Detroit Center in Midtown Detroit to Dearborn to Ann Arbor, and it gets some business and some traffic, but it's small and it's limited. For those who are in Ann Arbor, anyone who has a U of M ID can get bus service anywhere on campus, and so that's great, but the getting from places to campus is still pretty tough.
So I guess this is a question for either one of you or both. Why should the corporate community care about mass transit, and why should they sort of continue to reinvest in this idea that it has stalled at certain points throughout the years?
So we are at the Detroit Regional Chamber Policy Conference. Economic development is extremely important, right? And ensuring the partners on this is our business community. And I mentioned them being at the table. And that's because they are affected greatly, like everyone else is. Because when we talk about the major assets that we have, within the region, right? We have the airport. We were talking about the fact that we don't have a bus system that takes us directly to the airport, right? Very inconvenient for many people who travel to Michigan. Detroit, the University of Michigan. These are assets that should be connected. And imagine the amount between Michigan Avenue, the corridor of Michigan Avenue, and the business development and the opportunities that are there. Imagine if we had an active regional transit system that brought people from all around the region to these assets. Now, in between is just a world of opportunity for other individuals, other philanthropists, other business owners who want to open up but don't have an idea of how that's going to happen. And I think that regional transit will allow that vision to come into play.
And I think sometimes it's assumed, those poor people who don't have a car and those people who don't have access to transportation, it's for them. But really, mass transit helps all of us. So for sporting events, you can get back and forth. For, to reduce drunk driving, because people don't have to drive if they have a party or something like that. For people who are sick or have a temporary injury. For people who are elderly, rather than being isolated because they can't get around, they have ways to get around. There's also, not even to say the environment, there's all sorts of reasons to want to care about mass transit, not just for those who don't have their own car.
So when we look at the business community and the corporate community in explaining this to them, how do we really, not only because this is a complex issue and there is a lot of data involved and stuff like in throughout this process, but how do we explain it on a quantitative level and a qualitative level what the return of investment can be for these corporate partners when they really invest in this system that we're moving forward, and as Zaineb said, will be passed soon?
Well, just one big thing is It's not just how much money the system makes, right? So hopefully you can measure things like air quality. You can measure things like reduction in business costs for parking. You can measure things like quality of life. And those sort of things may not be as easy as how much profit is made by the transit system, but it makes life better for all of us.
Which, one of the things that I wanted to touch on, that's actually a perfect answer, and I don't think I can expand more than that, than the quality of life and the importance of it, right? But global warming is a real thing, just in case anybody's questioning that, right? And the environment, absolutely. I think that when we're talking about the business community, Detroit is one great example of how many individuals internationally and nationally have come to the city of Detroit and come to the region for investment. We have organizations that just came up, the Detroit Partnership, that really understand the importance of regional, right? And I say regional because, the one thing that I love about the partnership, and I love that Dave Coulter mentioned, and the county executive does as well, is they talk about a regional partnership. That is so amazing. Think about what we can do together, right? And then for the business community, it's basically expanding their playground and giving them an opportunity to invest. There is a lot of money that is out there, and it's just a matter of giving people the accessibility to really spend and invest in a way that will obviously benefit them, but also the quality of life for others. I mean, one thing that I don't want to forget is, yes, the business aspect of this is extremely important, but equally important is our humanitarian responsibility to, our brothers and sisters across, the region that are in a position of social inequity, and for them and their ability to, be able to use the transit system to help create a more self-sufficient life for themselves.
So I have a quick question from my perspective, right? What we look at when we're dealing with regional, right? It was easier in Portland or Denver because they kind of came up as regions, not just cities, right? It's very easy under sort of Midwestern states to form cities, very small. The requirements were really easy. So you think we're going to be able this time to overcome that sort of smaller sect that we've created over hundreds of years, basically, and be able to understand what regional really means? Is that what you're saying a lot of today is being able to understand what regional really means?
Yeah, absolutely. Understanding the definition of regional, right? 1, 2, what that looks like for all the partners, which is the people who live, the people who work, and the people who invest. I mean, we're talking about the business community as well, right? I think that is important, absolutely. And for us to understand a regional approach, we can get so much further in so many different areas, not just regional transit, right? On so many different platforms. But it's just, and this is the difference between last time around and this time. When I say this is the coalition of the willing, it's the counties that understand and that are willing to partner up on this because they understand the importance of regional transit and what it will do for their communities.
So it sounds like there's more of a meeting of the minds, so to speak, on this. All right, so basically, any last comments as we wrap up speed panel number 2? Zaineb.
I just say quickly, if we can successfully do regional transit, it will be a model to do some of these other things. So this is really for all of us, and if we can have at least one success working together as a region, that would pave the way for others.
Good point. Zaineb?
So what I would say is this, right? We need to understand that this is a start, right? If we traveled around the world nationally, we understand what regional and what transit systems look like, right? The rails, the buses. But this is giving us at least a fair shot just to start somewhere. We need to start somewhere, and this is what this regional transit proposal will give us. It will allow us to start so that others can see the importance of regional transit, how effective it is, and how it really does improve the quality of life. My last statement, if that's okay, is a PSA that I have to throw out there. The U.S. Census 2020, right, is coming up. Very important. Please be counted. March 12th, you can actually fill out your form online. When we talk about the importance of funding as it relates to the business community, as it relates to, the residents that work, live, and play within our communities, census is extremely important.
So, yes, and that's thousands of dollars per person, frankly. So I wanted to thank Trina, Zaineb, and I wanted to thank the Detroit Regional Chamber, as well as Kresge. Have a great night. Enjoy yourselves.